Hello, everyone. This is Mrs. Finholm recording a lesson for 7th grade math at Red Wing High School. Today's lesson video is related and part of our lesson for concept number 10, exploring exponents and interest. Today's lesson comes out of our student workbooks, and we're going to be working on lesson 4-6. Which starts on page 251. Please pause the video at this time and get your student workbook out and open it to lesson 4-6. Now that we have our workbook open and are ready to take some notes along with the video, I'm going to get us connected here and get us rocking and rolling. So I can apply percent reasoning to solve simple interest problems. So the reason that percents are attached to concept 10 is because they use exponents in the formula. And so first, let's do just a quick review. I'm going to use some of this warm-up space here from the warm-up problem and do a quick review of those exponent problems like we saw yesterday in class. That video is attached to your Concept 10 student guide if you need to go back and review the examples from yesterday's lesson on exponents and fractions. And so if we have, let's just go negative 2/5 squared. You'll recall from yesterday's lesson that squaring is the same as multiplying by itself. And so negative 2/5 squared is the same as negative 2/5 times negative 2/5. Next, we can review our skills that we learned and mastered in concept 9 and multiply these rational numbers. A negative times a negative becomes a positive. 2 times 2 is 4. And 5 times 5 is 25. And we also reviewed one where the negative did not go away. So let's also review and look at, let's go negative 1/3 to the 5th power. We won't actually work this one all the way out. I just want to remind us what happens with those negative signs. So negative 1/3 to the 5th power is negative 1/3 times negative 1/3 times negative 1/3 times negative 1/3 times negative 1/3. It multiplies by itself 5 times. And so now if we want to figure out what the sign of our answer will be, this negative and this negative are going to partner up. This negative and this negative will partner up. But now we have this 5th negative that doesn't have a partner left, which means our answer is going to be negative. And so then we would take 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 and have 1 in the top. And to find our denominator, 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. And I'm going to leave you to pause the video and find the denominator of that fraction on your own, because I want to jump into our simple interest examples. So turn the page with me, please. We're now in our student workbooks, lesson 4-6 on page 252. Let's get me over here where I'm a little more out of the way for you guys. All right. So finding simple interest. So interest is something that you earn on money when you leave it and it saves and accumulates in the bank. If there's anything you can do to help yourself now, start saving and put that money in a savings account where you can earn some interest, because you get paid to just leave your money sit there. It's one of the best pieces of advice a math teacher gave me, and I'll give it to you as well. Start saving, even if it's $5 a week or $5 a month. Start saving money now and put it someplace secure in a bank where you can earn some interest on it. So you can see here, Victoria opens a savings account with a deposit of $300. So she goes to the bank. She says, I have $300 I want to put in a savings account. The bank says, to leave that money in the account, we will pay you 1.6% interest each year. How much interest will she earn over 5 years? For those of you who are visual, you can see here how that works, and you can also see some key vocabulary words. The principal, this is not like Mr. Nemenich or Mr. Palmatier, the principal. This is principal, or P-A-L, different ending, different spelling. This is the amount of money you start with, and the interest that you earn each year that you leave the money in the bank is called your simple interest. Okay. So we have a formula that we can use to figure out the interest, and it's partially here, right? And they break it down. Our workbook breaks it into 2 steps. So using the simple interest formula, first we want to figure out the amount of interest by taking the interest rate, or the percent, times the starting amount. Okay. And then if we know that we're going to make $4.80 each year, we multiply by the number of years. And so we can actually make a formula to use for this. And the formula says this, that my simple interest is going to equal my principal, my starting amount, times my percent rate, times the number of years that we leave it in the bank. So let's look at an example together. This is the try it problem on the bottom of page 252 in your workbook. So you'll have this as a reference, and you'll have it in your workbook to go back and look at. Victoria has another account that pays 2.5% interest. How much interest will she earn in 8 years on an initial deposit of $250? And notice this is really important, assuming she never takes out or adds more money to the account. She's just going to put that money in there and leave it for 8 years. So step number 1, we need to write our percent as a decimal. 2.5 is 2.5%. But we should remember from 6th grade learning standards that all percents are out of 100. Percent of 100. There are 100 cents in a dollar. So the percent symbol tells us what it's out of. If we take 2.5 divided by 100, we'll end up with 0.025. You could write it in this little box here. I'm going to write it underneath because I have a little more space to write it that way. Okay. So now we're going to fill in, and we're going to find the interest that we would make on 1 year. Okay. So first I'm going to start by putting in, I'm going to take my interest as a decimal, 0.025, and I'm going to multiply that. So here's step 2. For those who are following along and are my concrete sequential learners, 0.025 times the amount of money that I put into the bank. Okay, so 0.025 times 250, we can pause and find that answer. So I took my calculator, and I've got 0.025 times 250, and that tells me that in 1 year I'm going to make $6.25 interest. That's a really good interest rate. So step 3, my final step, is to figure out if I'm going to make that amount of money each year, how much will I have at the end of 8 years? And so I'm going to take my 625 times 8. And so when we do 6.25 times 8, we find at the end of the year, at the end of the 8-year period, she'll have $50 in interest. So there is actually one extra step that we need to look at and solve, and that would be to find her ending balance, right? Because at the end of the 8 years, when she goes back, sorry, my handwriting got a little sloppy there. At the end of the 8 years, when she goes back to pull her money out of the bank, she's going to get her $250 that she started with, plus $50. So just for leaving her money in the bank for 8 years and not touching it, she now has $300 instead of just $250. All right, let's turn and look at our next example on page 253. Okay. Oops, and we're not going to look at example 3. We're going to scroll. I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong page. We're going to scroll to page 254 and look at some guided practice together. So here you can see your key concept. And again, on this page, for your visual learners, you can see that visual guide, a picture of what the different parts of the problem are. But you're going to want to write down. I'm going to move myself up here so that we have room to write. And so we're going to want to write down those steps so that we have them. So first we needed to turn the percent into a decimal. And then we can use our formula that says interest equals the principal times the rate times the time. And the last step, if it asks us for it, is to find the balance. And the balance is my starting principal plus the interest that I earn. You'll want to have that note written down so that you have it to refer to. Let's do one more practice problem here. So I'm going to look at number 5. Number 5, I'm on page 254 of our workbooks right now. Annika's cousin borrowed $800 to repair her car. She'll pay off the loan after 2 years with an interest rate of 4.5%. How much will she pay in interest? So my interest formula says that I'm going to take $800 times my rate. But remember, my rate needs to be a decimal. We need to divide by 100. So again, you might find yourself wanting to write that down. We did 4.5 divided by 100 to turn it into a decimal of 0.045. And she's going to take 2 years to pay it off. So we're going to multiply by 2 to get this final answer. And so now we can actually do this in one step on our calculator. 800 times 0.045 times 2. She's going to pay $72 in interest, but she actually has to pay back the original loan amount as well. So she has to pay back the $800 plus the $72. So in the end, by borrowing the money, she's actually going to spend $872. All right, I hope this helps with solving interest. I will see you in our next lesson.